Hi guys, welcome. Danny here from the Magic Junk Drawer. So today, before I go to work, I have to go to work in a little while. I wanted to talk a little bit about the imagination, half-truths, lying, that kind of stuff. And of course, it always comes up the waiting for somebody to call or waiting for somebody to get back to you. So we're going to start off first with the specific person waiting to hear from somebody. It's very, very frustrating when you're waiting to hear back from somebody. And I totally get it. Now, the thing is, if you're holding on to the thought, it's hard to kind of put it out into the universe if it's in your mind and you're not able to let go of it. You want to do what you can to let go of it. So you focus on what it is that you want, the person that you want to hear from, and then you do what you can to let it go and get busy with something else. So what happens a lot of times is, especially if you send somebody a text message or you leave them a message and you're waiting to hear back from them, people have a hard time with letting go of holding on to the phone and constantly checking it. The best thing that you can do for yourself is to put the phone down and get busy doing something else. So for example, if you can send the text message, leave the voicemail, whatever, go out for a run, and go out for a run long enough to forget that you sent the message. Okay? Like, you really have to legit forget it. It can't be the kind of thing like where you're like, I'm not thinking about it, but meanwhile you're really thinking about it. You really want to forget about what it is. So do something, anything, it doesn't matter what. Something that takes a lot of concentration may help you get your mind off of it, because it's very hard to focus on two things 100% at once. I mean, they say that you can't focus on two things at once, but I think that I can, and I'm not sure why. Like, I can be having a conversation with somebody and in my head thinking of something else. So I don't know why that is for me. My brain just maybe works different than other people's. I don't know. But anyhow, whatever you can do to take your mind off of it, change the subject, and get legit busy with something else will help. So the next thing is that the whole idea of this living in the end, right? You want to live in the area, in the headspace of already having what it is that you want. So say, for example, you wanted a new job and you went on the interview, and now everybody's asking you how the interview went. And regardless of how you feel, right, you want to put forward, right, you want the idea that you already have this job. It already went well. It went really well. I know I'm going to get the job. You want to try to stay as positive and as focused on that as possible. And what I hear a lot of times is people feel like they're lying, or people are in situations that they're trying to improve. And when somebody asks them about it, they're like, oh, I feel like I'm lying, or I feel like, it's fake. It's not real. Everything that you have created and everything that has been created in this world was once an idea that wasn't real. It had to start somewhere. So I'm not saying that you should lie to people, but I would omit the unsavory pieces of what's actually happening and focus on what's positive. So, like, it reminds me, like, everyone's always throwing around the idea of fake news, like who's lying about what and what the real truth is. So I was myself a victim of fake news once and it was really fake news. So I'll tell you what happened. And I'm not getting into politics, not on this channel, but a senator from my state sent me a letter. This was years ago. And it's saying that I had money that was being held by the state and I had to claim it. I had to go to a certain location with the letter and I would get the money. And they don't tell you how much money it is. So for me, it happened to be on a day where I was off work and it wasn't going to cost me anything but my free time. But when I got there, first of all, let me just tell you that I called the number on the letter because I wanted to make sure I wasn't getting scammed, because you can't trust anyone. And it turns out I was being scammed anyway. Not really, but So I called the number, and it was legit his office, and this is where they told me I had to be. And when I got there, first of all, when I got into the town, there was so much traffic in this town that, I mean, I was waiting for the light to change. The light must have changed 15 times before I was able to pass through the intersection. That's how much traffic was in this town. It was like Midtown Manhattan at rush hour. It was crazy. So when I got to the location, which happened to be at a library, there was no parking. There was no parking anywhere. I don't even remember how far away I had to park to get there, because you can only park in certain streets on certain sides and whatever. But anyway, I got to where I had to go with the letter. And this library happened to have 3 floors. 3 or 4 floors. And when I got online, I was out the door, and the line was going up the staircase, up all the staircases, and I don't even know how long we waited online. We must have waited, I must have been there, I was there several hours. Now, for me, like I said, I didn't have to take time off work, but there were a lot of elderly people there in walkers, and there were a lot of people that took off of work, and there were a lot of people waiting in line for this. And when I finally got to speak to somebody, the amount of money for me that it was, there was $100 money from the vitamin shop, which is fine. It was $100, better off in my pocket than the state's pocket. But all they gave me was a letter with a website on it that I had to go to, put my information in, and then I would get the money, because it was under a certain amount and it was in my name. If it was, a lot of people had the situations where their name was on it along with this deceased person, and then that was a real issue because they needed to locate that person's death certificate, and it's not easy to get a death certificate in New York State. So I got my letter and I went home and I filled it out, whatever. That day, that night when I was home and the local news was on, reporting about this wonderful senator that had mailed out all these letters, and all of these New Yorkers were getting their money back, and so on and so forth. The news clip literally showed bookkeepers counting out cash, and it looked like the thousands of people that were waiting online in that library were getting cash when they left. And that is not at all what happened. At all. What happened was you waited in line for hours to get the name of a website that, if he legit just wanted you to get your money back, he should have just sent that in the mail. This was a whole scam for publicity. And I understand you're a politician, that's what politicians do. But the point is that the news clip was totally fake. There were no bookkeepers there. There was no vault. There was no money. There was no cash being counted out. So, like when people talk about like half truths and what's real and what's not, the only person you have to convince really is yourself. So whatever it is that you're trying to bring more of in your life, convince yourself. I would limit discussing with other people what is actually really going on. And telling people half truths is okay. How are things going with so-and-so? Oh, things are great. That's it. You don't have to go into detail. Because if you start with harping on, I haven't heard from her, she doesn't text me back, she blew me off last week, he's inconsistent, then all this is doing is creating more of that. And I know that it's hard because you want to be honest with people, but at the same time, you don't want to put more of that negativity out there. Things are going great, that's it, end of story, and go back to your regular life, because you want to keep cultivating all of this positive stuff, not negative stuff. So when it comes to, the first rule is you have to imagine it. Everything takes place first in the imagination. That's it, imagine it. Somebody had to imagine the iPhone, somebody had to imagine the car, somebody had to imagine the airplane. These people were probably told that they were nuts, but they figured out how to do it because first they imagined it. Imagine what it is that you want, and then you have to let it go. You don't have to worry about how you're going to get it, because things come in different ways. And you have to, this is another thing that can be a little difficult, trust the process. So things may not look like they're working out in your favor, but you ignore that. You forget about that. This is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to be. End of story. And forget anything that is showing you otherwise. Anything that is making you believe something different, you ignore that. Ignore that reality and stay focused on what it is that you want. I need $1,000. That's what you focus on. And don't worry about how it's going to come. It's going to come somehow. You don't know. You don't know how it's going to show up. You just have to believe that it will, and it will. That's it. Focus on what it is that you want. Let it go, and just trust that one way or another, it's going to make its way to you. And these things happen. I mean, there are reasons why, you know, everybody has a story. And when you listen to somebody's story, you know, like when I told my story about how I became a yoga teacher. I was going to do the training. I wasn't going to do the training. Then I found a place, and then the place closed down, and then the place reopened, and it's up and down while you're going through it, and you think it's never going to happen. But now looking back on it, it's like I can see the way it unfolded. And it unfolded exactly the way that it was supposed to take me to where I had to go. But in those moments, it seems like, wow, what a letdown. But it doesn't have to be a letdown. It can just be, okay, so this is now where, you know, there's a little bit of a wall here, but that doesn't mean it's not going to reopen again. And what happened with me, the yoga place I was going to, I want to say that they closed down in October. And the reason why I think it was October, because I think we had a hurricane. There was like a hurricane or hurricane-like storm. And it was like the next day or the day after that the place closed. And then it was literally December when it reopened. So it wasn't like, hey, stop. It wasn't like I had gone, you know, we had gone a year without a place. It was literally 2 months. Hey, quiet. Let me get this guy some coconut oil. Anyhow, so I hope that those tips are helpful. I know that some of them can be a little bit challenging because it's kind of hard. All right, I feel like this. I feel like we try to protect ourselves by bracing ourselves for the worst case scenario rather than the best case scenario, because we feel like we're kind of protecting ourselves, like expect the worst, hope for the best. Well, you want to expect the best and hope for the best. You don't even need to hope, just expect the best and stay focused on that. And then just watch the way it unfolds, and don't get upset about anything that happens contradictory in between, because it's only part of the story. It's not the end of the story. Okay. I hope that this helps. I hope that it clarifies a couple of things. And as always, if you like what we're doing here at the Magic Junk Drawer, don't forget to like and subscribe, share us with your friends, and we will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.